Good morning, everybody. So, if I have to present myself, my name is John Paul Lennon, and it's probably somewhere there. And even though I am a narcissist, I get sick and tired about telling my story. So, it's probably in some place down there. It's in the agenda, right? You know all about me. So, born in Dublin, joined the Legionaries of Christ at the age of 17. Studied in Salamanca, Spain, learned Spanish, went on to Rome to do my higher studies, studied during the Second Vatican Council, 62 to 65, etc., ordained 69, was supposed to do a master's in education at Yale University. Turns out it was Southern Connecticut State College. So that's why I wrote a little booklet saying lies and deceit in the Legionaries of Christ. So these things that I say are particular, but they may be applicable to other people who have been in these coercive groups. Maybe. So then, because I kind of criticized one of the superior, after I was ordained in 69 in Rome, actually said my first mass at the catacombs in Rome, in the Roman catacombs. So, that would kind of what would it call feed my narcissism. But anyway, then because we were sent to do a master's in education, and I along the way I was talking to my guru, and I know I'll have to correct this guru thing, but our religious leader, founder, I was writing to him every month for spiritual direction, and I happened to mention something in my letter that was somewhat critical of a superior. So from Southern Connecticut State College, I was sent to Quintana Roo, which would be for you Quintana Roo in Mexico. You know Cancun, but this was before Cancun was Cancun. So it was the Yucatan Peninsula, beautiful place. And I was there for 4 years, and it was very nice, actually very nice, because for the first time in my life, for a long time, I met simple human beings. And this was good for me. This helped me, It helped me to get out of my long time dysthymia, probably, an occasional deep major depressive disorder. Anyway, from there, then I was promoted because I was very smart. I was promoted, and I founded a school for teaching, a Catholic teaching school for lay people in Mexico City with the very, very rich people. So I went from the poor to the rich. Then I got into a little bit of a tangle with the boss, the big leader, who's on the program today, Father Maciel, and he was untouchable. So I got into a tangle with him. Probably I was growing up a little bit. I was getting into my 30s. My self-esteem might have been increasing or something. And so I started kind of questioning him. And after struggling with him for some time and with my own internal struggles, I blew up with him one day, and we had a major, I call it the gunfight at the OK Corral. Yeah. There was a gunfight at the OK Corral, and that was totally no. So I stormed out of there, just picked up my shit, my stuff, and went out, jumped on the bus like that. So it wasn't the best ways of leaving, Then I felt very guilty after, why had I become so angry? Anyway, forget it. Anyway, so after that, I joined the diocesan priesthood in Washington, D.C. It was very freeing. The Archbishop was very kind to me, and he helped me also recover. No strings attached. And then I left the priesthood in 89 after doing some therapy. And I remember this, the clinical psychologist who treated me, I went to him, and I wanted him kind of to tell me, Paul, it's all right to leave the priesthood. But this guy was really good. He wouldn't that's up to you, you know. So I started, that's growth, you know. You wasn't going to help me in that sense. Anyway, so that anything else you need to know? Then I started recovering from there, got into dating, and eventually, after 20 years, found a nice person I could marry. Here I am. Okay. And she's Guatemalan, so I live in Guatemala. I'm retired. I live in Guatemala. I'm away from the, did I say, somebody said, away from the maddening crowd. Does that make sense to US citizens now? I could be here for a couple of hours, you know, if I just shut my mouth. Uh, but I do, you know, I can get testy about certain things, you know, because America, uh, Mexicans consider themselves North America. In case you didn't know, right? You know that, don't you? Mexico. And then we're Central America, and then there's South America. So America is a big place. This is what I'm supposed to be talking about. Oh, the short answer. We jumped right into the short answer and the long answer. The short of it and the long of it. So, and the other thing I wanted to say, I had in my notes somewhere, I'm not going to chop off heads or anything like that with the Catholic Church, because this is about basically Catholic, you know, abusers. But I'm not into chopping heads. It's not, this is not the French Revolution, if I may be so bold, excuse me. So, but I think, I'm still a Catholic to some degree, but I'm very open. I'm open to criticism. I'm open to whatever you want to do. But it's not conducive for me to kind of go frontal attack on the Vatican, for example, because if I do that, I am alienating people that I want to educate. You understand where I am? I have a small, I have a little website called Regain, which would be uppercase or lowercase e, and then uppercase gain, G-A-N. So it's not Rogaine, okay? No worry, no. So regain, please. At the same time, you know, I'm still a therapist, but so this is just people who are relatively new to the whole ICSA experience. Also, want to respect you and make sure that you are safe all during this conference. Just, this is totally off the wall, but you know, between jokes, I get serious. So nobody should overstep their boundaries with you, no matter who you are, no matter who they are. You should always feel safe here. Nobody should ask you intrusive questions, for example. Nobody should use your information without your permission. Okay, you have been briefed. So that's it. That's all. That was my little speech. So, so I think part of you knowing why these abusers, right, were able to get away with it for such a long time in the Catholic Church, right? Why were they detected so later? There's two sides of this. I think there's a psychology of the abuser, and there's a psychology of the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church. Again, I make the distinction. So we're talking basically bishops, and we're talking the upper echelon. So it's not your, we're all, and where everybody's a Catholic once they're baptized in the Catholic Church, you know. You may not want to be a Catholic, but you are, you can renounce it and nobody's going to bother you, you know. See if your card is stamped or something. We don't do that kind of thing. No. But I mean to say, so you get an idea, like there's 1.4 billion Catholics in the world, you know, and put a plug in for the Pope too, you know, put a plug in for the Pope. The Pope doesn't know everything that happens in the Catholic Church. How could he? And how does the Pope receive this information? He's going to receive it through the bishops. And and then after the bishops, it gets to the Roman Curia, which is the government, right? So these are, and the government departments are called dicasteries or something in English. They have a strange name, but the departments are called, I speak Spanish, so dicasterio in Spanish, dicasteries, they're called. They're the departments, the government departments in the Vatican in Rome. Okay. So somebody says, I want to write a letter to the Pope about this thing. I've seen a Catholic priest abuse a little boy in my church, and I'm going to write a letter to the Pope. May not be the best way to go. Will it ever reach the Pope? Because then between the Pope and the cardinals and all those, you have the Pope's personal secretary. You know? So now, I mean, when you hear about, I'm going all over here, but you know what I'm saying? So, getting back to the point here, pedophiles are extremely astute. A fellow, I think a chap may be here today, and he says pedophilia is defined as a fetish or something in the DSM. I'm not sure if it is, but I would call it a sexual deviancy or something. Please help me, psychiatrist and clinical psychologist. So it's not something that's easy to change, right? But they are the people, the way they're made this way, they're not going to stop unless somebody stops them. So you're not going to stop them by proclaiming a law, by writing a decree, by changing the laws in Arizona or whatever it is. Forgive me. Maybe that can help a little bit, but they have to be stopped because they just keep abusing and abuse. They can't. This may be very incorrect. They can't help themselves. And then, of course, if you deal with them, they'll justify all their actions. So, anyway, you got this, right? You can read. I consider it a big problem about power and control because you're going into the depths of a little person and you're controlling that person. That's why some people call it soul murder. Is that what this is a strong word? That gives you an idea. You know, you're killing the person in their most intimate part. You might say, if you're like a Catholic, you might say in their soul, in the depths of their being. You're you're hurting them. You're wounding them. And just another plug, in my opinion, there is no lightness of abuse. There's not, there's no these scales. I mean, anal penetration can be maybe top of the line for some pedophiles, you know, the greatest thing that ever happened to them. But for me, any kind of overstepping that boundary and getting into the other person's intimacy, be it emotional or corporal or sexual, that's for me, that's out of it. That is an abuse. Don't minimize. So you're gonna, you know. And the other side of the church authorities, why don't the short answer is church authorities are not so clever. They don't know what it means. They don't know what pedophilia means, or they don't want to know what it means. So now I'm getting a little bit wild up here, you know? So to get to the root causes effectively and stop and they prevent. And somebody asked me today, do you think now the Catholic Church has a handle on this? The short answer is no. Okay. Belief problems can be solved by documents, legislation, exhortation, threats. You know, you're going to hell if you do this. That's not going to stop a pedophile from operating, you know. The short answer now a little bit more. And this is the church part for the church, the short answer. Am I skipping over something here? No, I'm not. Okay, yeah. Here, because the church, the Catholic Church, is operating in a whole different world. You know, it's operating in a world of sin. You know, sin and innocence. They might call it. It might be a vice or something like that. Is that, you know, it's a capital sin or a vice or something. And so, because of our long history, they may try to rehabilitate the pedophile. And of course, the worst thing was the big sin. The big sin, the big crime was moving a pedophile from one place to the other, moving the priest. This is what really caused the scandal, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think for the world in general, shall we say, and especially for people in very Catholic countries, heretofore very Catholic countries like my dear Ireland, where the people just totally said, to hell with this. And so they're maybe neo-atheists now in Ireland, right? Oh, they've gone back to Celtic times. They, what, you know what I'm saying? So I think so. And I'm living away from Ireland for so long. I'm like a foreigner looking in on my own country. And it's hard to take, it's hard. Ireland has totally changed, There's a lot of money in Ireland. There's a lot of drugging in Ireland. It's something that I never knew about. And the people running around in fast cars and running over the old ladies in the towns. I mean, this is the end of the world for me as an Irish guy. But this is just abominable. So ignorance around pedophilia, and then for centuries, the Catholic Church, for centuries, obsessed with doctrine. Obsessed with doctrine. So that's why, the Inquisition and all that kind of thing starts. Obsessed with doctrine. You have to have the right doctrine. And the other part, of course, of our thing is you have to be, morality is the other side of the religion, of our Christian religion, right? Doctrine and religion. But sometimes doctrine and morality, but sometimes the morality never caught up on the religion, on the doctrine, if you know what I'm saying. Here I am doing a history of the Catholic Church in 10 seconds. But anyway. And then, of course, the big problem with avoiding scandal. There's somewhere in the back of my mind that I'd like to write a big article about avoiding scandal. Because what the Catholic Church does with this is a major thing. That's why all the cover up, that's why all the thing. And it's far away from what Jesus wanted. This is the sad part about it. It has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. That's the whole thing. That's the sad part about this, So avoiding scandal is protecting the image of Holy Mother, the Church. Whereas for Jesus, it was not putting another person in temptation, or not. Scandal is tripping the person up. Don't trip the other person up so that they fall into sin or whatever, whatever, or they fall by the wayside, Jesus would say, they fall by the wayside. They don't trip. Scandalum, hit your foot against a stone and you go head first. What a mess you made of that. Continue with my criticism of the Catholic Church. Will I be excommunicated? That is the question. I don't know. Swearing victims to secrecy and otherwise controlling them. This is sad too, because I have friends who were abused by Father Maciel, like you might say we call them now the Magnificent Eight, because there were 8 victims of Father Maciel, who's one of the guys. And they protested. So after 60 years, 70 years, maybe they got through to the Vatican. And the whole thing was, don't tell anybody about this. You go to your confessor, don't say anything about that. There it is. If anybody wants to, I'm going to publish this, of course. It's gone out there. If they want to crucify me, I know. I'm getting grandiose now. So I won't let you get too serious, and you won't have to use the discipline when you're finished here. This one, the Opus Dei, you saw that in the Da Vinci Code. Bam! You won't have to use the discipline after being here. The long answer, we're going to some cases now. And so the long answer is, oh yeah, okay. There's the l'Abbé Pierre. Anybody here from France or something like that? No, French people. L'Abbé Pierre was a very famous Catholic priest, as you know, in France. Or a Capuchin monk goes in there, ordained Catholic. After his death, questions, accusations arrive. So he was like a hero in France, and I think all the French-speaking world would hear about this. And I knew about him before, and I thoroughly admire that person. But then you find out after his death that he abused women. He was into the women thing, young women, all kinds of women, I think. Now, Father Maciel, because because I have him as a kind of a psychopath, he gives you what you think you want so he can get what he really wants. That's his personality. So he's a deceiver. He's the kind of the deceiving kind of a pedophile. And that's the way he handled all the members of the group he founded, which is the Legionaries of Christ. USA likes to say occasionally, Legionnaires of Christ. USA likes the Legionnaire piece, Okay. Sounds kind of French, Anyway, but Legionnaires of Christ, remember, Father Maciel is a Mexican. He is a white Mexican from an upper middle class family living in a small town in Cotija, Michoacan, Mexico, close to the lake of Chapala, close to Guadalajara, that whole part of Mexico. And he's really a deceiver. When I talked to Daniel Shaw about him once, who's the great investigator of the leaders, the cult leaders, and he said to me he was like a, what did he say? Kind of like a charming psychopath or something, a charming malignant narcissist, something like that, of little boys, of women, of everything that got in his way. And I'm still trying to figure out what was going on, what was going on inside his mind. A skilled charmer, curries favor with the Vatican. He was so astute that he weaseled his way in beside Pope Paul II, John Paul II. And of course, John Paul II was an extroverted pope, right? Let's get down to brass tacks here, right? So everybody likes an extroverted pope. Everybody likes an extrovert. No, so he was likable. So, but extroverts have thousands of friends, whereas we introverts, we have two or three. So the Pope probably considered many people his friend, and Maciel was one of those, but Maciel was able to milk that. So he was able to get close-ups with the Pope. He was embracing the Pope. He was kissing the Pope. So he won over the Catholic world. Many gullible Catholics are buying in this. So see, it's all about deceit. These guys are really good at deceiving. And this sense, this will probably be totally exercised or something. Excise is the right word. Sorry. John Paul II, he was not a good reader of people. He was not a good discerner of people. So he may have let people come close to him who were not good, as we could define them in the words of a very famous person, right? Yeah. The people who are not good. And one of them would have been Maciel. So, and of course, what was Maciel? He had the priest machine and the money machine. That was Maciel. How did he deceive? The priest machine, and of course we're losing priests all over the world, and we have this priest from Latin America. First of all, he says, I'm going to protect Latin America from communism. That was 60 years ago. Oh my God, the savior of Latin America for the Catholic Church. And then he's producing these priests, kind of like a production line he's got for priests. He's got a way of recruiting young men, innocent young men with no life experience. He gets them through a seminary, blah, 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 blah. This guy even wrote a book about training priests. You can imagine that. He even has a university in Rome to train priests, all approved by the Vatican. So he's still kind of young. Anyway, hopefully you can get all this tape later on some kind of a thing, right? Everybody should get this thing. And the latest a U.S. scandalous, Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, or Teddy. He was Teddy. And what Teddy liked to do was, he liked the seminarians. Teddy liked the seminarians. So he became famous, in the church. He became powerful. Probably one of the most powerful people in the U.S. Catholic Church was Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. And they weevil their way into important, powerful positions. So they become kind of untouchable, unquestionable, and that's why. So he was able to. He would say like that. He was so important. He was. Then he became a bishop. Then they made him actually. Who put their foot in it to make him a cardinal? Major mistake. Oh my God! And there were rumors about him going on for 50 years, for 20 years. But people will say these things. Trying to destroy the good name of a good man. They're trying to destroy the good name. Great fundraiser like Father Maciel. Father Maciel was called by Jason Berry, the Catholic reporter, as the greatest fundraiser of the Catholic Church in the 20th century. And this guy is not as good as Maciel, because Maciel had all the Mexican millionaires behind him, and a few Americans too. Questions, answers, suggestions, anything you like.